All right, guys. Welcome to Hot Route Takes. I am Chase with my usual guests, Brian and Christian Mills. We have been tackling the division predictions for all across the NFL so far as we ramp into football season. Today's show is going to be on the AFC and NFC East. A very fun division on both sides and one that should be competitive, especially on the AFC side this year. So we're going to start things off with the NFC, and I'm going to throw it to Brian, and he'll let you know what our predictions were last year and how things ended up finishing.
Yes, so last year in the AFC East, Chase, Christian, and myself all had the Bills first, Dolphins second, Patriots third, Jets fourth, and they ended up finishing in that exact order. Bills 13-3, Dolphins 9-8, Patriots 8-9, Jets 7-10, and then you switch over to the NFC East side of things, and let me find it real quick. Chase and me had Dallas first. Christian had the Eagles first, so congrats to Christian there. And then me and Chase had the Eagles finishing second. Christian had Dallas finishing second. And then we all had Washington in third and Giants in fourth. And the way it actually ended up playing out, Eagles won the division with a 14-3 record. Ended up going to the Super Bowl. Cowboys 12-5. I believe they lost in the divisional round. Giants 9-7, lost in the wild card. Commanders 8-1, last in the division. Pretty competitive divisions, I would say, particularly heading into this season. Without going on too much more, I believe we're going to start in NFC East, and my fourth ranked team is the Commanders going into 2023. And the reason why I think they're not quite up on the same level as these other teams in the division is a lot of it has to do with the quarterback play and Sam Howell. And then, he's a fifth round pick. Got to play a little bit last year and was okay, I'd say. As far as from a rawness standpoint, I still don't think he's there. I still think he's got a lot to learn. He kind of is a high risk, high reward type quarterback, I would say. I think he gives you a little bit on the ground. He's got a strong arm. I think they got weapons to where stuff's going to happen. And, Taylor Heineke last year threw up yellow balls all year, it seemed like, and Terry McLaurin came down with him. So, there can be good things to come out of this high volatile type quarterback, like a Jameis Winston or whatnot. But he he's got some weapons to work with. I'm a little bit concerned with the offensive line. Like I said, I do think he's raw, so progression style passing, sitting in the pocket is going to be a problem for him. Particularly, he's also short. So I think that with that offensive line being a struggle bus really across the board, this is not very good anywhere you look. And then weapons being so-so outside of Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, everything else is kind of so-so at best. The backfield has got Antonio Gibson, Brian Robinson, which are solid guys, but just nothing that really sticks out, especially when you compare them to the other teams in this division. I think all of them have more to offer on the offensive side of the ball. Defensively, though, they got some weapons here. All across the defensive line. Chase Young, let's see, he's in a contract year. You should get the best out of him this year. Daron Payne, stud. Montez Sweat, one of the best, most underrated players, I think, in the edge group in the league. And then Jonathan Allen. Secondary-wise, I think you're a little slim. They did draft Emmanuel Forbes, yep. Pick 16. Guy gets his hands on the ball. That's what he was known for in college. I'm not the highest on Emmanuel Forbes. I do think he's a little small, really frail. I believe he's like 6'2", 160 pounds. The dude's like a stick. I'm just a little concerned there, but I think he's definitely worth taking a risk on, particularly with his ball skill pedigree that he showed in college. However, I think the strength of his defense is definitely up front, that D-line. I think that D-line is good enough to win them some games. But just Ron Rivera as well. I think he's had one winning record in his tenure as a head coach in the NFL. So not exactly a team that is going to win more than the roster dictates, I would say, because of the coaching. I think it's going to be a little bit of a rough year. I think they'll probably regress this season from last year. That's my my pick. But yep, Commanders at 4.
Yeah, I have them at 4 also. I just do like what they kind of did and went and got a new OC because they have some exciting pieces on the offense, like you hinted on. It's just how much is Eric really going to be able to touch the team and how much would Ron Rivera give them not the green light to go. But honestly, I lean towards, I agree with a lot of what Brian said. They have the weapons. They went out and re-signed Deron Payne, Jonathan Allen, and I think Chase Young's another big question mark on this team. They didn't sign him to an extension. This is his probably last year on this team. So how much do you expect out of Chase Young? Do you expect him to be what he was supposed to be coming into the NFL, and he just hasn't been that because of injuries? Then they also have Sweat on the other side. I think is an underrated guy. You don't get to hear a lot about. I think there's too much star power everywhere else on the defense line. He's kind of the guy that get left behind. But I agree with Brian. Sam Howell, that's really what this season boils down to. I like everything else on the team. I mean, they have young safeties. I like the cornerback room is young, but honestly, I kind of like what they have there. I know they have Fuller, who's a veteran guy. I expect him to maybe show some veteranship to these younger corners they have, but Ron Rivera, somehow, some way, he gets their defenses to play, and I think he's done that in Washington. It's just the offensive side's just what he's not been great at, and that one year was Cam Newton's year when he was with the Panthers that kind of helped them then. And I just think Ron Rivera is on the hot seat this year. I think it's easy to be seen. They have the new ownership. I just expect a big turnover after this year, to be honest, and that's why I have them at 4th. I think they're going to keep a lot of players, but just I think Sam Howell's not going to be the guy. They have Jacoby Brissett, who did play good for Cleveland, I think better than what most people give him credit for. And I mean, until recently, we kind of was leaning probably more towards Jacoby Brissett being the starting quarterback for this team. And they kind of just gave it to Sam Howell because, I mean, they really have no other options. So I just expect this team to be good. I mean, great on the defensive side, but I just think these other teams in this division have too much offensive power to where Washington's really not going to be able to do anything. And it's just how good is Sam Howell is kind of where I guess we can be right or wrong on this take. But I just see Ron Rivera gone, new head coach in the building, and maybe if they go get a top-tier quarterback, this team then, to me, can easily be with these other teams.
Yeah, pretty sound there, Christian. I mean, the revolving door at quarterback for Washington has been going on for a while now. Last year, they were playing the hot seat back and forth with Taylor Heineke, who the locker room seemed to be behind, and he was winning ball games, but wasn't exactly lighting the world on fire and just balling out. Defense, the front especially, really carried to that 8-8 record. So really needs to be more of the same, and hope that Sam Howell doesn't make those mental lapses that young QBs tend to make. He's got the playmakers outside to feed the ball to and make things happen for, so he does a good job at that. They have a decent ceiling, but for me, it's still too many other negative things about this team, especially the coaching. I don't think Ron Rivera, and he's out the door with the new, as you touched on, Christian, new ownership. There's just seems to be a lot of turnover ready to take place. And last year they gave up 48 sacks, which were the 7th most in the NFL. Didn't really see a huge improvement out of that area. And then they were 5th worst in yards per carry, just at 4 yards per carry. The running game, they have guys, but it still wasn't strong. Make improvements in those fields. I think Forbes, although I like the prospect, I think he was a bit of a reach at that pick.
I agree, Chase.
He's got tools and he's got the height, but as Brian said, he's a bit frail. So the big physical receivers could definitely give him problems. And the Commanders, they had joint practices with the Ravens, so I've got a lot of notes on these guys here recently before our preseason game. And Zay Flowers, I'm loving Zay Flowers right now, but he was cooking Forbes up in practice, man. He routed him up a few times and burnt him. The first play of practice was a bomb to Zay Flowers and burned him for a touchdown. So I saw a little bit of that in the game. I mean, Washington was out there playing Sam Howell against our second and third stringers to end our preseason streak, and they were, barely winning that game. They won that game on a last-second field goal. So I think we're a good team, but I don't think we should be beating teams like that. I think that speaks to how Washington is as far as depth and especially offensive side, the type of firepower they can have. I love the receivers, but the QB play is not going to be strong enough for me. And I think Ron Rivera is just out the door, and they're turning a new page, basically, which they've done with this franchise in the last few years. But it'll be a step further into that next year.
Yeah. I'm interested to see what Eric Bieniemy does as far as pulling Sam Howell's running ability
Yeah.
out and trying to put that on display, because that's something he showcased while he was in college for the UNC Tar Heels.
Yeah.
However, moving on, and it's kind of crazy to my number 3 team, and this is where I have the New York Giants. And it's crazy because I almost have a crush on the way this team plays. I love the way they play football, man. I love the players they got, but I'm still a little underwhelmed at the end of the day. Last year, I think they overachieved, particularly with the lack of weapons they had for Daniel Jones. I was just really surprised to see them pull as much out of Daniel Jones as they did. That was easily Daniel Jones' best season, and they did it with Isaiah Hodgins, Darius Slayton, Wan'Dale Robinson, Sterling Shepard. I mean, they made the most out of these guys, man.
Yeah.
What they did in the offseason, they brought in Darren Waller, which, was yet to be seen. I don't love that move. I was, a big fan of them getting a guy like Mike Gesicki, which I thought would be a good scheme fit for them, give them a weapon outside, and up the seam for Daniel Jones. I was a big fan of that, but Darren Waller, if he can return to form, he will be the security blanket for Daniel Jones and be the weapon in this pass game that they need to take this offense to the next level. I love their offensive line. I mean, it's got some young players here, particularly rookie John Michael Schmitz. They drafted out of Ohio State in the second round. Good player, though. I think he's a high ceiling player, but he is a rookie, so you never really know what to count out of that. And then their first round pick last year, Evan Neal, was not very good last year, but has all the potential in the world. Very similar to Andrew Thomas in stature and ability and profile coming out. So very similar players there. I think he can have the light bulb come on just like Andrew Thomas did. So offensively, I think they just took what they had last year and added on it. Brian DeBall has been excellent coach for them. I think he'll milk this offense for all it's worth. I do think they're a little lacking here. I do think really the Commanders had better weapons outside of maybe Saquon Barkley, who's probably the best weapon of the whole bunch. Terry McLaurin's easily the best other weapon here. Jahan Dotson's probably the next best weapon here. So a little lacking there. And, Saquon Barkley has the injury history. If he goes down, this offense is toast in my mind. And I'm not very high on Daniel Jones. I don't think he deserves that contract, but they need to make it work around Daniel Jones for this offense to work. Then defensively, they played this really aggressive man coverage system, which I don't know why. I guess it's my time with Brian Flores. I just like seeing it. I like watching that aggressive man coverage system. Wink Martindale runs it. It's fun to watch. And first round pick, Deontay Banks out of Maryland. I think he's going to be good. I like him. Big height, weight, speed guy. Has all the potential in the world to be a lockdown man corner. We'll see what that turns into. They still have a Dory Jackson on the other side. Amani Oruwariye, Xavier McKinney. And then on the defensive line, this is where they got some guys. They got some studs on this defensive line here. Early pick last year, Kevin Thibodeau. They brought in Bobby Okereke on the second level. Azeez Ojulari, another high pick previous years. Leonard Williams, freaking Dexter Lawrence, one of the best interior defensive linemen in the game. So, I mean, I think their defense is good enough for them to win some games. I think their offense just needs to be competent, and I think they will be competent. I still think they're bound to regress. They overachieved last year. They did make their team better, but I think ultimately they still will maybe not win 9 games. I'm thinking like 7 or 8. That's just where my head is with the Giants. But, yep.
Yeah, kind of went back and forth on this team, and I went with the Giants just because I think kind of what Brian said. They got more out of Daniel Jones than I expected them to, honestly. But a big thing that really hurt me, I went back and looked at the receivers last year who kind of led the way, and believe it or not, it was Isaiah Hodgins. This guy was on the Buffalo Bills, got cut, came in New York, and was their number one guy. And like Brian hit it on, I mean, they have Jalen Hyatt, and then the other guys they went and got Paris Campbell. They still have Slayton, Shepard, and they have Jameson Crowder. And all those guys, and Wandale Robinson. And to me, I hear all those names. I mean, that's a slot guy, every one of them. So I don't know what they're going to do with this offense because they have a bunch of slot guys. And then, however, also, Brian hit it on Darren Waller. I actually like the move for them. That is, to me, going to be their wide receiver number one in reality. So I think he has to stay healthy. He has to stay healthy. But, I mean, I expect them to do a lot with him. And, I mean, we've seen the success he's had with a Derek Carr. So I think he can have the same success there with a Daniel Jones. But, I mean, the Daniel Jones contract is a big question mark for me. I didn't like the contract. I looked into it before we did this pod, but it's really not that bad of a contract. It's a 4-year deal. The front 2 years are loaded. And then after that, it's kind of one of those deals that third and fourth year they can get out of it. But I just don't see Daniel Jones having that kind of year he had last season. And they did go get Barkley, but I'm just not a fan of the offensive line. Like Brian said, there is some bright spots there, but Evan Neal, I don't see maybe getting better, to be honest. And then they have the John Michael Smiths, center. I needed to pick up. I think that's great for them. I mean, my favorite thing, why I went back and forth, is this defense. Is why, I mean, they have Dexter Lawrence, my guy from Clemson. I mean, they have Kayvon, who's doing snow angels beside a dead Nick Foles on the field. Leonard Williams, Xavier McKinney, and Dory Jackson. So, I mean, I like the defense. It's just really the offense is what scares me the most. And this offseason, they got Bobby Orico from the Colts. Hopefully, I said his last name right.
No.
No, definitely, probably not. That's a get you name. Dante Bank from Maryland, who shot up the draft boards. I mean, I think no one expected him to go as high as he did. He kind of just shot up in the draft. I do like that pick for them. It's a young corner room. They have Jackson. He was in Tennessee for a little bit and showed some shine, but just he hadn't been what we kind of expected him to be when he came in the league. I know last season the team did upset the Vikings in that one game they had near the late of the season. And then team success to me at the end of the day comes off of Danny Dimes. If he is what he was last year, I see the same outcome they had this year. And if he's better, then of course they're going to do better. But I just don't see it happening for this team. But I think it gets bright with this coaching staff and they're showing bright signs. But it's just the teams ahead of them for me are just way better at this point in time, just roster wise.
I got you. I do want to make a clarification. I do like the Giants' offensive line, and I do think the offense is going to run through Saquon Barkley. And Daniel Jones is a complementary piece of the offense, in my opinion. If Saquon Barkley goes down, Danny Dimes goes down. That's just kind of the way I see that offense. I don't think Daniel Jones is the type of quarterback that can carry an offense.
No, I agree with you. I mean, NFC East is probably going to be pretty cut and dry for all of us. It's the reason we're doing this first. I've got the Giants 3 as well, and I'm kind of with Brian. In my head, the Giants are due for a bit of regression. Defense, we all love. I think we love a lot of the pieces there, but as we said, if teams just force Danny Dimes to beat them, I think it can get ugly pretty quick. Although they made moves to make his life easier, the Darren Waller trade, and then the drafting of Jalen Hyatt, who in the last preseason game he beat Sauce Gardner on a go route with that speed, but Tyrod Taylor underthrew him, so he didn't make the play. But that's a nice third round. Like getting him in the third round is a nice selection for this offense. It's what they needed to improve this passing game. But that said, even with these added weapons, I don't trust Daniel Jones to make use of them. I think it's so dependent on Saquon and setting up everything for the offense. And I just think teams can key in a little bit more on that this year, and that'll bring out the regression. And then you talk of turnovers. That's really what made them start winning ball games last year. Daniel Jones cut out the turnovers. Yep. Their 6 interceptions was the fewest in the league. So that alone is what won them games. I don't think he's due for a repeat performance like that. So I think they need to make up for that defensively, and I think I'll be interested to watch Banks this year because I love the pick out of Maryland. If he can create some turnovers, because as good as the offense was in limiting them or whatever, the defense was just as bad. They only got 6 picks themselves last year, which was the fewest. So they weren't throwing interceptions; they weren't getting them. So if Deontay Banks can cause a few of those, and then they just got Simmons for basically free from Arizona, we were
They
just praising
did.
this
We didn't
guy
even
our
mention that.
last. Yeah, we were just praising this guy our last pod, talking about how bad Arizona is, and the only thing to look for on this defense is Buda Baker and Simmons. Well, the Giants just got Simmons for a 7th round pick. They just fleeced the heck out of Arizona. So if him and Banks create more turnovers, I think that's where they make up the what the offense is gonna lack this year. They have to do it, but in my mind, I don't see enough to catch up to these other two teams. It's pretty cut and dry that the Eagles are in a tier of their own. Cowboys can flirt with a pretty decent winning record, and the Giants are like borderline playoff team in my mind. NFC's kind of weak, so they can sneak in with the good defense and Saquon. But if you had to ask me right now, I think I'd lean no because I'm leaning hard regression.
I got you. With the Giants, I do think a lot of it does come down to development of a lot of their young players. They are counting on a lot of young players in key positions like Deontay Banks, like you said, but also Kevin Thibodeau. He's got to improve as a really early pick. I think he has the goods to do it. And then Evan Neal at right tackle. You got a bunch of guys that are going to have to step their game up, particularly on the offensive line in this division. Woo!
Yeah.
We're talking about the Cowboys next at the number 2 spot. Micah Parsons may be the best edge rusher in the NFL this year. You know, he's a full-time edge now, bulking up a little bit. We'll see what that looks like. And that's one player that makes all of the other offensive linemen in this division have nightmares the day before that game, because that boy, he's something serious. I do think he could push for the sack record next year. He's that good. And then, you know, offensively, the Cowboys should be, you would think, in a better place. If you listen to a Cowboys fan, they'll tell you, we got rid of Kellen Moore. We're going to start being a little bit more pass heavy, I guess. We'll see. With the Cowboys bringing in Brandon Cooks to be their number 2 guy after losing Amari Cooper a couple years back, and then losing Dalton Schultz as well. But CeeDee Lamb is a good number 1 receiver. They just needed to complement Michael Gallup. Wasn't quite that. However, Michael Gallup, now a year removed from his injury, might be a little bit closer to being himself. The one thing that does kind of worry me about the Cowboys is the backfield, with it just being a little bit slight with Tony Pollard leading the way, being a little bit of a smaller back, maybe a catching down back archetype, if you will. And then their backups being Deuce Vaughn, 7th round pick, 4'9", running back, 5'5", but Rico Dowdle as well, former South Carolina back. So a little thin there. I'm a little bit worried because in my mind, Dak Prescott's a quarterback who works really well when he can lean on a running game and has shown inconsistencies when he has to be the man game in and game out. He shows really high level, elite levels of play, but then he'll turn around and have a couple interceptions. And so we'll kind of see what Dak Prescott we get this year. It kind of depends because they're switching schemes. Now Mike McCarthy calling the shots instead of Kellen Moore, so there's going to be some verbiage differences and things like that. And not a running game to lean on, but the receiving group is better, and they got a little bit more dynamic in the tight end room with Jake Ferguson, young player, but Bishop's a better athlete. So we'll kind of see what happens there. The offensive line is pretty solid, as Dallas's offensive lines have been last couple of years, with Tyron Smith, Tyler Smith, 1st-round pick from last year, I believe, maybe the year before. Zach Martin and Terrence Steele, that's pretty good. And then the defensive side of the ball, DeMarcus Lawrence, stud across from Micah Parsons. They're going to get after the quarterback. And another thing I really like about this team is their secondary with Trayvon Diggs, ball hawking corner, playmaking corner. Corner that gets beat, though. Stephon Gilmore on the other side's maybe not top corner status like he was years ago, but now he's still a top guy, especially as a CB2. I mean, that's really good. And then Donovan Wilson and Curse, Malik Hooker, as your safety room. That's pretty solid. I do think the Cowboys are significantly better than the Giants and the Commanders, and I think they are a playoff team. They're with the
Yeah.
Eagles, but I do think
Ooh.
I think they're flirting with the Eagles. I'm not right there. Micah Parsons is as dominant as I think he is. Tony Pollard stays healthy. This offense clicks together. They can compete with the Eagles, in my mind. I have a hard time saying they're as good as the Eagles, or definitely not better than the Eagles, but definitely worth contention for the NFC East.
Yeah. Well, I kind of like what Chase said. I think we're going to be probably all even here with everything. I have the Cowboys also here, but first of all, I just want to say thanks to being a Chargers fan. Y'all getting rid of Kellen Moore. I think that's not a smart decision for y'all at this point. But I mean, we're talking about a guy that's been on this team, or not on the team, but calling the shots for 4 years now. Last season, they were second in yards and scoring. So I don't know where they're going to be better. So there's only one more spot better, and that's first. And I just don't see that happening with Big Mike calling the plays. So I just don't see the offense probably being what they expect. But like I'm saying, I'm happy on my side, but they also did lose Ezekiel Elliott. But honestly, I think that was the best move for the team. They got out of a contract they needed to get out of. I mean, last season he only averaged 3.8 yards per carry, and when Tony Pollard hit the field, it was a big difference. Zeke, the thing that kind of saved him and why Cowboys fans still gave him some love was in the red zone. He got the tutties for him. So he could push for the 3.8 yards that he was averaging to get in the end zone. Another thing I did like was Brandon Cooks coming on this team. This guy's just, I mean, you know what you're getting everywhere he goes for all the teams he's been on at this point. He gets the same production. He just hasn't really, I guess, found a home, which kind of blows my mind. He's a great number 2, and I think it's going to help CeeDee Lamb and open up a lot more things for CeeDee Lamb if they go into this way that they're going to pass more, which I don't know if that's what the future holds. I know when Mike was calling the plays in Green Bay, it kind of was Aaron was kind of wanting them to pass more. So, but I mean, defensively, I mean, I'm with Brian. Michael Parsons, I mean, that's all I got to say. This guy speaks for himself. If you don't know who he is at this point, I mean, just go look at Dallas defense and you'll figure out who he is very quick. Like Stephon Gilmore, though, I will say I still think is a top guy. And now moving into the CB2 spot, I expect him and Diggs to be maybe a top 10. Maybe could sneak into maybe like a top 5 duo in the corner position after the season. What you got? Oh, you think top 5, Brian? I think they can easily do it. Just Diggs have to quit getting burnt is the big thing with him.
I thought
And
he was
then,
better last year.
Yeah, he did, but still, I mean, he's greedy, but he gets the turnovers when they need him. So, and the last thing I'd like to say about this team is I did like the Mozzie Smith out of a Michigan pick. This guy will be a day one difference maker on this defensive line. I mean, at Michigan, we seen what he was doing there. I like the kid a lot. I expect big and bright early things out of him because he's also either going to be beside Michael Parsons or either going to be next to Parsons. So I just expect big things out of Mozzie Smith.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Christian, because I completely forgot, and that's kind of been their Achilles heel last couple of years. Teams running the ball all over them. I mean, I remember last year, I think Saquon had 2 big games against them. But yeah, Christian, I forgot all about Mozzie Smith. Good call out.
Yeah. Pretty cut and dry, guys. I mean, I want to say I'm going to lean towards Brian's take to where if a few things go right, they could take this division from Philly if they win the head-to-head matchups and these things go right. Betting man and predicting man talking right now, I've got them finishing second. Just I trust the rest of the Eagles roster, and I think more things have to go right for the Cowboys to win this division. I will say the offense, I think what fans are hoping for, I mean, I'm by no means a Cowboys fan or know many of them, but the consensus for me is that the offense gets a little more dangerous, deep and down the field, and they cut out the turnovers. Dak threw, or I don't know if it was all Cowboys QBs. Did Dak start every game last year? I don't think he did.
I think he
No,
may have missed
Cooper
like
Rush
one or
did come
two
in a
games.
little
Cooper Rush
bit.
did play.
Yeah. So, well, as a team, they threw
Well,
18 interceptions. So I don't know how many of those Dak accounted for, but as a team, that was the third most in NFL. So they got to cut that out to take another step offensively. Then you add in Brandon Cooks, who's been pretty underrated his whole career. He's always been a sound receiver, and fantasy pick that sleeper people might not be looking at right now is rookie tight end Luke Schoonmaker, who pretty much will be replacing Dalton Schultz. And if you watch Cowboys games the previous years, Dak loves some Dalton Schultz, man. He got him the ball, especially in the red zone, a good bit. So be on the lookout for him in the red zone. It might be a good value pick if you're playing fantasy football this year. Uh, that said, that's what I think of the offense. They take that step if Tony Pollard's healthy, as Brian mentioned, and he looks like a great back when he's on the field. He made dynamic home run plays all year last year. So him staying healthy and Dak cutting out some interceptions, they'll be a good offense. That said, the defense looks good. They got playmakers at each level. They got turnover machines at each level with Micah Parsons and Diggs creating fumbles and interceptions. That's huge for defenses.
mm-hmm.
The pick should address the run defense. So roster fills out. I think if we're looking at the NFC as a whole, I want to say Philly's the clear-cut best team. San Francisco's still up there for me, and I think I might throw Dallas in as the next. And they got a playoff win last year. I think they should be aiming for an NFC championship game this year. That should be their hope. Because the roster's pretty there to do it. And if Dak plays good football, they should have a good chance. That said, I'm not going to take them over the Eagles.
I'm with you all the way. Dak only played in 12 games last year, and they won 12 games as a team. So you would imagine if Dak plays more, maybe they win a few more. And they only lost to the Eagles by 2 games. So I really do think Dallas is right there behind them. You know, I do not think they're with them, but I definitely think there is a world where they can win this division and steal it from the Eagles. However, I still got the Eagles number 1, and you can go a number of places to say why. They got a great offensive line. They got weapons for days. They got Jalen Hurts, and some people think he's in for an MVP run this season. The defensive line is the best defensive line in all of the NFL, backed with some prestigious linebackers, if not proven yet. Linebackers in Nakobe Dean and Hassan Reddick, as well, Nolan Smith. I mean, you got some guys here, maybe not stack backers, but guys who can come up and rush off the edge. And then cornerback room, probably a top 5 cornerback room as well. James Bradbury, Darius Slay, very good. Very, very good. If I had to compare this to Dallas, I'm going to still give the edge to the Eagles.
Yeah.
Because, man, they're both really good. But I think where the money's made on this team is really that defensive line. They're pretty deep as well. And they got the steal of the draft and Jalen Carter, who apparently is having a phenomenal camp and just tossing guys. And you put Fletcher Cox, Jordan Davis, and Jalen Carter on a bear front. Who can mess with that? Really, who can mess with that? The center head up on Jordan Davis. He's going to get killed, man. Any center. I mean, that's a tough ask for anyone. And so I really just think it's going to be a very dominant performance this year by the Eagles defense. Again, even though they lost players, they lost quite a few. I believe they lost Taylor Rapp.
Mm-hmm.
You thought they were going to lose one of these corners. They lost C.J. Gardner-Johnson. But still, I do think they're poised to have a very good season this year. I think offensively, the running game is just going to be better. I really think both of these backs they picked up are both underrated value adds in DeAndre Swift and Rashad Penny. I mean, Rashad Penny, it's always been a health problem, not a what can he play problem. He can play. It's just, can he stay on the field? DeAndre Swift has been a little bit up and down. He wasn't utilized properly when the new regime came in Detroit, and they just kind of wanted to restart. And so they went Jahmyr Gibbs, who's a very similar archetype style back, as a little bit undersized, pass catching, elusive running back. But I think DeAndre Swift just needs to change the scenery, and he's going to explode. And I think that's going to happen with the Eagles. With the offensive line being what it is, having the pass game be what it is, Jalen Hurts having that added run element, There's just so much to account for with this offense, and I think that's what makes it so dangerous.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what I'm hearing. I think the Eagles, I have them at my number one, definitely to win this division. I mean, Super Bowl runner up. I think this year they maybe seek for revenge, to be honest with you, with how they got to keep both these corners they thought they were going to lose. I mean, at one point, Darius Slay was like on another team almost. Then all of a sudden he signs with the Eagles. So,
Yep.
I guess you can call that some Philly magic. I mean, they did lose CJ Garner-Johnson, which I think is a big one. Another one that Brian kind of didn't hit on was TJ Edwards in that linebacker room. I think that is another hard hit for this team. They do have Nicole Dean, who was hurt last year. I expect this guy to have a big year this year and kind of be what he's supposed to be for this team. But, in free agency, they went and got Lane Johnson was thinking about being done. You had Jason Kelsey thinking about he was going to be done. They somehow taught all these guys to come back for this offensive line. Fletcher Cox came back. Brandon Graham came back. And they went and, re-signed Boston Scott to this running back room, which, that's kind of the only spot to me that you're worried about. But, last year we saw Gainwell come into the game whenever Sanders wasn't always 100%, or either they just wanted him in. Gainwell did great in the playoffs when he did have more play time. So I think worst case scenario, if Swift and Penny's not what they want them to be, Gainwell will be more than capable to take over the backfield just because this O-line is so great. I think it really doesn't matter who's back there, to me at least. I just think this defense is, still great. They did get Terrell Edmonds from the Steelers. I think he will go into that CJ Garner role, but I don't know if he'll be that great in that role, but I do think he'll still have some bright times, but I just don't think he'll replace him completely. That was a very playmaker type player.
Sidney Brown.
Who?
They drafted Sidney Brown as well, safety out of Illinois. I do think he could fight for some reps there. I did like him coming out.
Yeah.
So sorry to interrupt you though.
No, you're good. Heck, give me some more knowledge. I'll take it. But I think also just the people they added, this team really, you look on it on paper, them and the 49ers to me are the complete rosters in the NFL. Somehow they did it. I look at those two teams. I think other teams maybe need to look and see what they're doing. They did sign Jalen Hurts to his big deal. That's the only concern with me with the Eagles at this point moving forward. How much will this team gets to keep the dominance that they have? And I think getting A.J. Brown helped them a lot last year for getting, didn't get him, got a steal there. And then anywhere else, Devontae Smith would be a number one wide receiver. And because he's on this team, he's a 2. And I think, just those two guys, I think the Eagles are in a good spot and easily, to me, win this division by a lot more games because Mike is now calling the plays in Dallas.
Yeah. This is not going to turn into a Eagles pod anytime soon, but all of us are going to give them some love. Like, it's clear. This is a great roster. No denying it. And everything they did last year was so impressive. It was a complete domination just from the jump. The Brian touched on the D-line. 70 sacks in a regular season was dominant. Like, it was
dominant.
It was 15. The second place team was Kansas City. They had 55. They finished 15 sacks ahead of the second place team. And you get pressure on the quarterback that much, like, pair it with those great corners, that's a dominant defense. And then the offense was just moving the ball at will with that great line last year. So
that's 4 sacks a game.
That's insane, man. Like, that is such a game changer. And then you get Jalen Carter, who is the consistent 1-1 prospect.
Yep.
But teams are QB hungry, rightfully so. Those teams draft that, and then you get past some other teams with other positional needs. Boom, Jalen Carter falls to the Eagles. How's that happen? Like, that don't seem fair, but he is a heck of a player, having a great camp, and I would look for big things. They've got so much talent. They're just going to rotate these lines, keep them fresh all year, and each guy's going to get their opportunity. Each guy's going to put up their numbers, and I would look at more of the same. Offensively, 8.1 yards per attempt last year was second best in the NFL. They don't need a strong passing game because their run game's so strong. But when they did air it out, Jalen Hurts was going downfield using those great weapons and putting it on the money. That's why he got paid, man. And that's why they made this run to the Super Bowl. not much has changed. You did mention that they were close to losing one of these corners. Darius Slay, the rumor has it, I believe he said on his podcast that he was about to sign with Baltimore. He was about to go play with Marlon Humphrey until the Eagles stepped in and were like, nah, here's this check. Please stay here. Rightfully so. He earned that payday. He's been a great corner for a long time. That cornerback duo, they keep hitting home runs in the draft, man. It's going to be a good team for a while. So we'll end the Philly love here. I try not to go overboard, but this is a great team, man.
Yeah, I'm with you all the way. The only mistake I can think of the last couple of years for the Philadelphia Eagles from a process point of view from the GM is taking Jalen Reagor ahead of Justin Jefferson. Everything else, great.
Home run. Yeah.
Great. So we're going to transition to the AFC East here, and this is very hot topic division, I would say, not just for this pod, but across the NFL landscape. I think a lot of guys have some strong opinions about this division and what it will be this 2023 NFL season. And I'm going to kick it off here with my fourth-ranked team. And in fourth place, I got, unfortunately, New York Jets. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I just want to see you guys' faces there for a second. I got New England Patriots here, and I really think New England could even be a potential wild card team in NFC if they were there. But because the AFC is so loaded, some of these teams are inevitably going to be worse than the roster probably should. The record's going to be worse than the roster is. And New England's one of those teams. I think they have a very solid, high-floor team. There's a bunch of vets all over this team. They're going to be coached well. We know that. Bill Belichick. But no true difference makers, really. If you look across their team and you look at their best player, who do you think it is?
Judon.
Matthew Judon?
Judon all day. I think
Matt
he's a good
Judon.
difference maker. Yeah.
Kyle Duggar's, I think, worthy of consideration here. Offensively, is it Ramondre Stevenson?
100%.
Yeah. Tough. Offensive side tough.
It's pretty tough. And then they got Jimmy G at quarterback. So, man, it's pretty tough. They took Jimmy G in the first round, guys, pick 15. So that makes it look a little worse there. And then Juju Smith-Schuster, that's a solid piece. Kind of their slot guy. Kendrick Bourne, depth guy, really. Devontae Parker, he'll play 5 games and have some hell of a catch. I'm telling you, he'll have a couple of those. But, man, he can't stay on the field, and he can't get open. So, Kayshon Boutte, rookie this year. Previous first-round prospect who tumbled down the draft after running like a 4.7 40, which was insane. They brought in Mike Gesicki as well. I'm interested to see what they do with him, really, especially being like a gap power run system. They're not going to have him out there attached to the offensive line, so kind of curious to see what they do with him. Mike Gesicki's problem as an NFL player is he kind of dictates what you're going to do on offense. When you see Mike Gesicki out there, you know what's going on. He's going to pass, which is kind of the problem. While he was in Miami, he was kind of a giveaway. He was a tell for the defense. But their defense is solid, man. They got a couple really solid players just all across the defense. The corner room, Jonathan Jones and Miles Bryant, Jack Jones, all these guys that are high floor players. And then you have a Christian Gonzalez who, man, he landed in the perfect place for him to develop into what he could be. And that was my number one corner coming out. He's got insanely good movement skills, and this is like a guy that I talked to you guys last time about Sauce Gardner not being a perfect matchup for Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle because he's kind of a high hit, longer guy with not elite speed. Well, Christian Gonzalez is got the movement skills and the speed and fluidity to keep up with these guys. He's a good matchup, and I did not like seeing him go to New England because he is going to be the kind of corner that's going to give us some problems. But just a well-rounded roster, man. I think this team's good for a good 7-8 wins and a loaded AFC.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll just start out. Sauce Gardner, man. Don't listen to him, man. You just be you, man. That's all I want to say. I'm going to go on and talk, man. Number 4, I have the New England Patriots. Honestly, just to me, you just listen to the names on these teams in this division and just talent-wise, New England is just not there yet. Their only group that stands out to me is their edge rusher. I think it's Matt Judon and Josh Uchain is their best two bright stars on defense. Other than their corners, I think at this point, Bill Belichick can get anyone off the street, put them at corner, and they will be an all-pro somehow. I don't know what it is with Bill Belichick. That's why, like Brian said, Christian Gonzalez going here is just, it's a great fit for him, and I just think he's going to be great definitely now as long as Bill Belichick is coaching there. And then another thing, just the wide receiver room does not do it for me. I think it's a very poor room. It's just nothing there that makes me go, oh, look at this piece. You have Juju, but Juju has not been good since Antonio Brown with the Steelers when he was the number 2 option. That was Juju's last good year, so I just can't get behind the Juju. And then, Matt Jones is your quarterback. I think the only bright side for this team that kind of some people forget about is Bill O'Brien is their offensive coordinator. They actually have an offensive coordinator. Him and Matt Jones go back to Alabama, so they know kind of what each other likes at this point already, so maybe they can get that going for Matt Jones. He just does not look comfortable in that system last year, but he didn't have an offensive coordinator, so I at least expect them to somehow get better. But for this team to do anything playoff-wise or even get close to sniffing it, it goes to their running back room, and their running backs both in Zeke and now I don't want to get behind the Zeke. I just told you what he did in Dallas, 3.8 per carry. But Stevenson's a great back. I hope they keep him out there and don't really waste their time with Ezekiel Elliott at all, except for in the red zone maybe. But the only way they go far is Stevenson has an all-pro, crazy running back year. But other than that, if you want to watch a very old-school game, by all means, turn on New England Patriots game. So that's what you're going to see, a lot of running, defense, very slowly chewing the clock is what I expect out of this team.
Yep.
Yeah, we're all. I promise we're gonna differ this pod, but we're all gonna.
It's coming.
Yeah, we're gonna agree on the NFC East, and we're gonna agree on the last place team here. We've all got New England, and as Brian said, just a very high floor team. So they'll be good. They'll win football games, and honestly, you put this team in the AFC South, I think they're second place behind Jacksonville. I think they're better than Tennessee. I think they can flirt with a playoff spot. But the rest of the teams in the division are, you can argue, division winners, playoff football game winners that can win a football game in the playoffs. New England, I don't really see that. Their defense would have to go crazy. And to their credit, they were really good last year, man. They had 19 interceptions, third most in the NFL. Defense only allowed 7 rushing touchdowns, the fewest in the NFL. They get after the quarterback with Matthew Judon. I've always obviously redrafted him, the Ravens did, and I've loved him as a pass rusher. He does what you want and winning matchups when he's presented them, and then playing a great setting the edge in the run game. So the defense is always good. As Christian said, plug in any corner you want. Bill Belichick will make him an all-pro guy, it seems like. So I have no worries there. I think they'll hold teams to a few points, but Juju and Gesicki is not enough to make this pass game dangerous, and I just have no faith in it. I'm not going to pile on Mac Jones because I think he's fine as a QB, but God, he needs more than TikTok boy to make this team any good and put up points. It's going to be rough. I think they're pretty clearly the fourth team. The other 3 above them, we're going to differ on, guys, I promise, and I'm ready to talk about them. So let's go.
Gotcha. Okay, so the last thing I want to talk about with the Patriots is I think that Bill Belichick is on the hot seat this year.
Oh, come on, man. No
I'm
way,
serious.
bro.
I think he could be fired after this season. They just rebuild. I really think.
Fire Bill Belichick.
Yeah.
You know, Super Bowl he's won, bro. What?
What have the Patriots been doing to be better for the future? How bad has they been in the draft recently? Because it's been real bad. The draft has been horrendously bad, right there with Las Vegas, and they also have this guy over there, Josh McDaniels. Maybe that has something to do with this poor drafting. I see.
Yeah.
However, I'm gonna move on. I don't want to crap anymore on the Patriots.
Clip that one.
I really think that, dude. I really think Bill Belichick is fired.
Brian, he needs 2 mediocre seasons, and he has the most wins of the head coach ever in NFL history.
Well,
Just two
let's see him get it with
mediocre
another
seasons.
team because he hasn't had a winning record since Tom Brady left.
I hear
So,
you, but
and it
this
ain't getting
man's
better.
second in wins in NFL history as a head coach.
That's what I say,
And he
man. I
rode
saw
Tom
him win
Brady all
11.
the way there.
Boy, he won 11 games with Matt Castle, man. Like it's so good. They could go 0-17. I think he has that job until he wants to retire and move on. Truthfully, but
You guys,
Tell him.
have
I would
y'all
be
heard of
shocked.
Don Shula? He got fired once too. It happens.
Okay.
So anyway, third team. This is where I do have the New York Jets. And I thought you guys would probably see it coming, so it's not that big of a take. And young team. They went 6-11, 7-10 last year. They started off pretty hot. Mike White looked competent back there. Zach Wilson had his moments, but ultimately was not good enough to keep the job. Got a lot of young, high drafted players that have shown promise. I'm not here to crap on the Jets. I'm just asking, let's tap the brakes a little bit before we say 7-10 plus Aaron Rodgers to win in the division. I don't think that happens. I think these other two teams in this division are very good as well. And then the AFC in general, the whole landscape is very good. So that being said, I want to talk about the offense and defense a little bit more here. So Aaron Rodgers comes in, right? He just came off easily his worst season as a pro. All right, he's transitioning from Christian Watson, Romeo Dubs, Aaron Jones, A.J. Dillon to Garrett Wilson, better player than he had. Breece Hall, you would think, right there with, at the very least, Aaron Jones. You would hope better, but he is coming off injury. I don't want to say he's better. So I'm going to give him about even keel right there between Breece Hall, Dalvin Cook, Michael Carter, Zombie Knight. I would say they have comparable running back rooms to what Green Bay had last year, right? And then the offensive line, Mekhi Becton, Dwayne Brown, Max Mitchell. Your tackle room is in decent shape. Decent shape, I'd say. The interior, Laken Tomlinson, Connor McGovern, Elijah Vera Tucker, it's also in decent shape. The offensive line is probably your biggest concern on offense. And it being in this division with the Buffalo Bills defense, the Patriots defense, the Dolphins defense, it's going to get tested quite frequently. And Aaron Rodgers is 40 with a bunch of new receivers coming in here. Granted, he does have his old buddy, Alan Lazard. We know how good he is. And Randall Cobb, we know how good he is too. And so this receiver room's loaded, right? Garrett Wilson better stay healthy. This offensive line's got to gel. The offense has to gel. Breece Hall has to come back healthy. Defense is young. They're in a loaded division. How good is Robert Saleh as a head coach really when you put him against Sean McDermott, Mike McDaniel, Kansas City, Baltimore? There's just so many teams, the AFC, I have a hard time thinking this whole team's going to come together year one. Aaron Rodgers is going to shake off what happened last year in a very poor NFC, and just it's all going to come together. I have a hard time with that. The consensus media and a lot of other people don't seem to have a hard time with that, but that's why I have him at third. Defensively, I didn't really get touch on. Absolute stud. Okay? Whole lot here, but Quentin Williams is the best player in this defense, and I want to put that out there first. Sauce Gardner is probably the best at his position, if not second or third, right? Very good player. Sauce Gardner, elite. I have to say he is. I just tapped the brakes before we put him on the best corner in the NFL. And then DJ Reed's very good as well. CJ Mosley, older, second level player. And that's kind of where their weakness is on defense, is that second level. But the defensive line's got some players. Carl Olsen, if he can stay healthy, is good. John Franklin Myers, Jermaine Johnson, former first-round pick last year. And then Will McDonald, first-round pick this year. Pass rush specialist Will McDonald. Look, I know it really doesn't sound like I'm giving the Jets a whole lot of props here, but I just really think they're overrated, man, right now. think they're good. I just think they're overrated.
Man, you done now?
All right, I'm done.
Well, I
I'm
just want to
done.
give a shout out to my boy Stephen
Yeah,
A.
I'm
Smith, man. This is blasphemous stuff I'm hearing right now out of Brian, but I expected nothing less. Man, at number 3, I do not have the New York Jets, as you can tell by that comment I just
know who you
made.
got.
At 3, I do have the Miami Dolphins. I just think, Vic Fangio's coming in, having to change the defense. Miami did mess up and not at this point get Christian Wilkins to a deal, which is not what I think any Miami fan wants going into this season. I expect Christian Wilkins and Jalen Phillips, I will give them some praise, to have very good success in this Vic Fangio's defense and get some more sacks and help their productivity. But I mean, I think the team in Miami, they're going in the right direction. I just do not think they're there yet. I mean, we seen last season, if Miami's offense is out there, they're passing the ball. I mean, they might run it, but I mean, they're not running much. I mean, they run, I think it was like a 70 percentile passing or something like that. I could be wrong, but it's pretty close to that. And they didn't do anything to improve in the running game. Armstead's already hurt. I mean, big shocker, big surprise. We already seen, their guy Jalen Ramsey. Our defense is going to be better. This man was already on crunches at one point. He's coming back. I understand. I heard that before in NFL seasons. Will Fuller's also been on this Miami team in the past, and he was coming back. We never seen him. But I do think they
ready
did.
Week 1, baby.
I hear you. I'll be watching that game. Trust and believe. I'll be watching. I will not be seeing them out there. But they did honestly do a great draft. Cam Smith is a star. I think they low-key got lucky and picked him. I think it's kind of how the draft board fell. I don't know how the other corners got more love than Cam Smith. I mean, this guy I honestly can see turning maybe not into like what J.C. Horn is, but their skill sets are very similar, and they came from the same college and played together. But I think, they did add David Long Jr. That definitely helps their run game, or not run game, but stopping the run, which they've struggled with a little bit. They got him for a 2-year, $6 million guarantee. You would think with me saying he's going to help this team, it'd be a little bit more expensive to pay this guy, but just injuries. Will he stay healthy? And then honestly, the offensive line is why this team is third in this division, because Brian just gave the Jets not that much love, what he should have for their defense, but every other team has like where they're going to get to the quarterback, and the Miami just does not seem to care for their offensive line getting upgraded. Armstead, I understand, is great. They have a couple other pieces, but Tua's blind side is a big question mark, and we've already seen Tua's injuries. And honestly, I just do not have Tua playing every game this year. I mean, that's maybe a hot take, probably not, just because all the injuries, the head injuries, what he had in college injuries-wise. I expect this team to be great, don't get me wrong, but I just think the other two teams in this division, roster-wise, to me at least, are better. I can see Miami go, I don't know. I can see them honestly winning 9 or 10 games this year just because this division's going to be tough. I can see New England maybe still one from them. Maybe, I don't know. I think it's very easily every team in this division could go 1-1 against each other. Surprisingly, and I don't think it would surprise a lot of people, but just I can't put all my money into the Tua staying healthy, and we've seen Miami with their backup quarterbacks, and I just don't see that being a bright future for Miami.
Okay. All right, man. God, this is gonna be fun, guys. I love this. Let me preface this with, I believe the top 3 teams in the AFC East, each of them are capable of winning multiple playoff games. They all have something about the roster that I love, and they all have good QBs. That said, who am I with? Am I Christian or am I with Brian? I went back and forth, guys. I really did, and I ended up leaning with Christian. I've got Miami finishing third. And I think Brian has got Aaron Rodgers as the 10th best quarterback, which still blows my mind in the NFL.
Preach to him.
And I've just got such faith in him showing, like, not just, like, good QB play. I'm talking, like, previous MVP QB play. And I just think it's in there for him. I still do. Like, and that's just what the Jets were missing. That going from that big of a jump from Zach Wilson to Aaron Rodgers. It can't be understated. I don't know I can say enough things to talk about that type of level. So that's what put them over Miami for me. And I'm not going to harp on what question marks I have for Miami. We touched, if anybody listening, go check out our Miami Dolphins preview pod. We hit every question you could for Brian on this team. We've got it all answered. We voiced our concerns. That said, all of us think this is a good football team. We think there's bright spots in the receiver room, one of the best in the NFL. Tua, when he's on the field, the offense is dynamic. The defense, they went out and got a Jalen Ramsey, who is just a great guy to have as a chess piece. And you partner that with the other young, exciting players that Brian's been loving on and got us invested in now, and Javon Holland and those type guys. Each side of the ball is very exciting. I will knock Miami. Something I want to see improved is special teams. Last year was pretty horrendous. Brian will tell you this. I mean, 5.8 return yards in the punt game, worst in NFL. Under 19 return yards on kickoffs, 31st. Like, field position matters, and it matters a lot in the NFL. And when all these top three teams are this close, that can decide football games.
Slim margins.
It's the margins, man. And I think all three of these are great football teams. I think Miami's got a hell of a future, man. Like, they've been nailing draft picks. They went out, and the guys you trade for, Tyreek Hills, they're investing in the right guys. Like, you're investing in game changers. And that's the type of guys you trade for. And I've got a lot of love for this team. They're exciting to watch. And I think they have the type of roster that can win multiple playoff games. Just prediction hat on, I'm predicting big year from Aaron Rodgers, and I think the Bills are the Bills, and Josh Allen's still that guy. So if we're ranking the QBs in this division, I've got I think our list, I had Allen, Rodgers, Tua, and then Mac Jones in that order. I'm going the same way with the teams. Just spoiler alert here. I mean, I went back and forth on 2 and 3 because I think the Jets and Dolphins are close, but I think Aaron's still the better quarterback. I think he'll play better next year. And for that reason, I've got the Dolphins finishing third.
Gotcha, man. I'll talk about the Dolphins here in a minute. But number 2, I got Buffalo here.
Jesus Christ.
He's doing what you did last year, Christian. He's doing what you did.
Lord. Brian,
Kansas
it's hard,
City.
I understand, man. But
Kansas City's another ballpark in Buffalo. I think Buffalo tends to be overrated a little bit as well. They were the darlings last year, the Super Bowl favorites, and we kind of seen how that played out. And then they got to the playoffs and got boat raced by Cincinnati, and then they barely beat Miami in the wild card round. And then at one point in the season, they were 7-6 last year, but then turned it on late in the year. Like, I have no qualms with Josh Allen as a player. I think he's phenomenal. I think he's one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, regardless of what anyone says about the turnovers, any of that. It doesn't matter. What he's capable of, play in and play out, is touchdown worthy every single play. And if he's got the guys around him to allow him to be himself, he's almost unstoppable, man. As soon as you think you got the guys covered down the field, he can take off, run. Oh, you got your middle linebacker there playing contain. Well, he can drop his bucket and run him over and keep running. Like, Josh Allen's a full package, man. And I hate saying that. I'm a Dolphins fan. I see it, though, all the time. I know what this guy's capable of. The problem I have with the whole situation is they rely too much on Josh Allen to create for this offense. And they did something to try to help with that. They brought in another weapon in Dalton Kincaid. But rarely do we see first round or tight ends come in the rookie year and blow up. It's a very complicated position because you got to come in, you got to learn not only the pass catching, but the run blocking as well. And it's just a complicated thing to adjust from a college offense. So how early can Kincaid help this offense and be that number 2 guy in the offense behind Diggs? Because we've seen Gabe Davis he's just not quite a number 2. And then as far as other guys they got in the receiver room, they got Khalil Shakur. They brought in Trent Sherfield, Deontay Hardy, Andy Isabella. I mean, you're a little thin here in the receiver room, and it relies a lot on Stephon Diggs. And then the running back room, they did bring in Damian Harris and Latavius Murray to pair with James Cook. And James Cook apparently is in line to start for them, and we'll see what that looks like. I'm not entirely sure what James Cook is yet as a player. He hadn't had a whole lot of touches, so that's still kind of a question mark on what this running back room will be. But Damon Harris, is a solid player. We've seen what he was in New England. I don't necessarily think he's like a star player, but he's above average back. He's going to get those tough yards that you need. So I do think he was a nice add for them. But offensively, I think they rely a little bit too much on Josh Allen's playmaking abilities. Once the play breaks down, running out the pocket, making stuff happen with his legs, I think eventually that might catch up to him because he does take a lot of nasty hits. He does deliver a lot of nasty hits himself. But still, very good team here. I think either one of these three teams could win the division depending on how things play out, who stays healthy and all that. And all of them are capable, as Chase said, to win some playoff games. I think all of these teams are extremely talented. Spencer Brown, former first-round pick, has not been what he was. My problem is just offensively, Josh Allen had to be relied on a little too much, and the offensive line being a little weak supposed to be for this team. Thankfully, Josh Allen is right-handed, so that's not his blind side. Deion Dawkins has been very solid over there at the left tackle position, but last year their offensive line got into some problems later in the season. Josh Allen was getting some heat after him, particularly against good defenses, which he will be playing against in this division. Now, defensively, I think the return of Von Miller cannot be overstated. They need that desperately for this defense on their D-line. He is their feature piece on this D-line with Greg Rousseau and A.J. Epinesa as well with their other edge rushers. They did bring in Leonard Floyd, who I think was a great add for them to be a depth player because Von Miller is 35, I think. Like, he's getting up there in age, and they need that for this defense, particularly since they lost one of the best middle linebackers as far as coverage goes in Tremaine Edmonds. What they asked him to do was very difficult because they do play a lot of nickel fronts and play light box counts and ask him to cover a lot of space across the middle of the field, and he's done it. They still have Matt Milano, who's one of the best middle linebackers in the game. And as far as the secondary goes, I think they are solid, but I think the secondary is rapidly falling off. What they were a couple years ago was dominant. What they're becoming is slow. And I think that's going to be an issue for a team like Miami. That's just my take anyway. But I think overall, if you look at the full picture, Josh Allen, they brought into a couple complementary pieces to maybe be the number 2 answer, Dalton Kincaid. Brought in a back that can be an answer in Damien Harris. Not a whole lot, really. It's still going to be the Josh Allen show, if you ask me. And then defensively, a lot relies on Von Miller getting after the pass, after the quarterback. Solid defense, very good still. Big differences. Their defensive coordinator, Leslie Frazier, is not there anymore, and that is an excellent defensive coordinator that cannot be overstated as well. Very good player, and they lost Tremaine Edmonds, who's probably maybe the best player on the defense outside of healthy Von Miller. And so Sean McDermott, defensive head coach, is going to have to be more involved with this defense. What does that look like? I'm not sure. Is it still going to be great? Probably. It's very communication-oriented defense, but at the same time, I don't know if it's going to be quite the same level of dominant defense we've seen the last couple of years from Buffalo.
I hear you. Chase, I hope what I'm about to do, you did not go down this road with me because I don't think Brian will be able to handle it. But at number 2, I have the Buffalo Bills. I think what Brian kind of went on the rant with, and I think losing their defensive coordinator is going to hurt this team with, the star power that every other team has. But that being said, Buffalo Bills, how they lost, heartbreaking, and then what we've seen with every other team in this division, you would think they'd go out and get some pieces, and that's just not what Buffalo did. They were happy with what they had. They did lose Trey Edmonds, big piece, went to the Bears. Matt Milano's still there, and then Leonard Floyd, which I think is a good thing, Leonard Floyd, for the pass rush. I can see him trying to get to some of these quarterbacks in this division, and I think that's kind of their plan behind adding him. But, other than him and Matt Milano, this linebacker room is just not, doing anything for me. I think Dalton Kincaid was a great pick. He can go into that Cole Beasley, Isaiah McKenzie role into the slot, move the chains. I actually see Dalton Kincaid I ain't going to say lighting it up this year, but I think that's a good, sneaky guy on this team that I expect to get the ball in his hands a good bit. With that being said, I've been on this for the last couple of years. These guys have both heard me try to tell them this guy's going to do something, and that's hopefully this year is the last year I beat the drum for Gabe Davis. I want Gabe Davis to finally be a wide receiver too. I don't know if he can, he can. I mean, he shines every once in a while, definitely fantasy football wise. You see some big games out of him, but just I don't know what it is that hasn't let him do what he needed to. I think Stephon Diggs is going to be Stephon Diggs. He put all the rumors on him not wanting to be in Buffalo finally to rest the other day when Stephen A. tried to do it again. But I just think the defense scares me on this team. I mean, I will say this, since Tom Brady has retired, this has been their division. I mean, they have been number one from that day forward, but I just see this year them not being up at the top. I do expect James Cook to be great in this offense, definitely in the passing game, and I think that's why Buffalo went and got Damian Harris to, if it doesn't go well for him in the running game, to have a back that's great at just in the run game. But I expect James Cook to have a big role for this team. And supposedly Josh Allen's not going to be taking that many shots no more. But if you get watched any preseason, it looked like Josh Allen has not changed his ways. And he's going to still want to be Josh Allen, which, I mean, I don't blame the guy. I mean, that's how he plays the game. And he's been playing it like that for how long at this point? So, I mean,
gonna play.
He's going to play. And, I mean, I love it. I mean, I like the play style. Very entertaining, but we seen last year that play style bit them because that's when the injuries came in the playoffs for him, the elbow. And I think a lot of people kind of forget that he had the injuries because he's just one of those guys that, I mean, he's hurt, but he's going to be on the field no matter what because his team and just how he is as a person it's going to be there. I expect Buffalo to be good. Just the secondary is where I'm kind of scared. How much of Trey White will you see this year? I expect if he's on the field, he's going to be Trey White. Jordan Poyer and Michael Hyde, I expect big things from, but they are getting older. And I mean, the team I hadn't talked about in the Jets in Miami just has guys that, I mean, they're young guys and they're not old and they don't have the miles that these two safeties have. So it kind of gets scaried on the backside. But I expect Buffalo to at least put up a good fight and possibly can win this division, but I just don't have them winning it in my rankings.
Okay. Love it because we are all going to differ on the top three teams, man. And I almost pulled the trigger and put the Jets at 1 with you, Christian. I almost did, but the time that I think needs for the offense to gel together, I think the first few weeks may be a little rough shop with the offense. And this division, I think those weeks matter. For Miami, I think it was the injuries to Armstead and Ramsey. Every game they miss matters. And I think those wins that it cost them has them finishing third. I think the time the Jets offense needs to gel together, that cost them wins, and I have them finishing second. So just some great top three teams here, but I'll hit on some of the things I like about the Jets. Bringing in a McCole Hardman, Speedster to stretch the field a little bit. Aaron still throws one of the prettiest deep balls in the game. And then the chemistry he already has built in with guys that he did bring over from Green Bay helps. And then you get that exciting weapon in 17 and Garrett Wilson to feed the ball to, man. Like, I just so far on the Garrett Wilson bandwagon. I expect such a huge year for him. Aaron will play good. I think he'll get him the ball, and they'll get a lot of wins. I mean, last year they were 32nd in completion percentage, just under 57%. Their QBR was the worst, right at 75. So even if it wasn't Aaron Rodgers coming in this offense, if it was a 16th ranked quarterback, that's an improvement from a 7-win season to at least a 9 and just mediocre quarterback play. I don't think Aaron Rodgers is going to give you anything close to mediocre quarterback play. I think he gives you possible MVP quarterback play, and that's enough to win 10, 11 ball games. I just think Buffalo will probably win the head-to-head, and that's the only reason I've got them finishing in first right now. But I think Jets pretty easily make the playoffs. Unless Aaron goes down, I don't see this team struggling for a playoff position. I just believe too much. I made Brian walk off with that
guy.
one. I believe too much.
Guy.
Because Sauce Gardner's him, man. He is, and every talent, every piece they have at every level is just really fun to watch. And we've said it, me and Christian have said it all off season. All they were missing was good QB play. That's all they were missing, man. And I'm so far in on the Jets that I've got them finishing second and racking up some big win totals on the year and being a great football team.
Oh, this guy.
God.
Oh,
Man, it wouldn't be right
this
without my
guy.
jersey on, man, right? You see it?
This
see it?
Number one
guy.
jersey on for us.
All right, man.
First player injured in the regular season.
All right. So, a couple things. I respect it, man. I really do. You guys are shooting a shot for the Jets. I get it. All right. So, Ron Armstead is reportedly supposed to be ready for week 1. Jalen Ramsey, full meniscus repair. He's supposed to come back at some point in October, November, in that ballpark. We'll see. He said he's going to beat his recovery time by a month. He's got that dog in him. We'll see. But you can only heal as fast as you can heal. However, we're going to get in the nitty-gritty here. I believe in Miami, man. I really do. And as a Dolphins fan, I have been waiting for this moment. We finally got a team that I really can feel it's ready. I thought it was ready last year, but if you look at first year of the offense, Mike McDaniel, a timing-based horizontal spread system, that's very difficult to come in year 1 and have a lot of success with. They do have 2 elite receivers in Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, who's going to give a lot of teams fits. Biggest thing with Miami, and everyone knows it, is Tua's got to stay on the field. He's got to be healthy. And if Tua can do that, I think what this team can be, we don't know what the ceiling is. We don't. I think last year 8-3, just getting started with this offense. Now they come back. This another year of Mike McDaniel and his, cooking up different route combinations and being the mad scientist that he is. I'm sure they got some new stuff in store this year. And I'm sure they got some nice intricacies to pair up with a lot of the RPO stuff they did last year. If they can sprinkle in the run game and actually have a run element to the RPO, that would be nice. Because like Christian said, we have not been able to run the football for years and years, it seems like at this point. And Mike McDaniel, when he came over, we were thought to be a running football team, is what people thought we were going to be. And I do think we did have some solid additions. We got some tackles in here. So when Armstead goes down, we at least have serviceable guys stepping in instead of Austin Jackson and Liam Eichenberg, who were total flops as draft picks. But they brought in Braxton Berrios. That's a nice complementary piece to Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. Speed is going to get open from the slot. Robbie Chosen Anderson, however you say his name, is a nice guy from the outside. And then they brought in Tyler Croft. And they got Durham Smythe, and they brought in Eric Saubert. Just some blocking tight ends. Maybe we can get the ground going, because this is a wide zone system that we've not been able to run football. But I think the difference here between Miami and Buffalo and the Jets isn't the offense. It's the defense. I think the defense is going to be the strength of this team, and that is with a really good offense. And let's not forget how great the offense was last year. The defense was one of the worst in the NFL, and we're talking about Tua missing time, Teron Armstead missing time, plus having one of the worst defenses in the NFL last year. We still go to the playoffs and still take Buffalo Bills down to the fourth quarter. We're talking about adding the best defensive coordinator in the NFL to match with all of these young, promising, upcoming players in a Javon Holland, who has potential to be one of the best safeties in the NFL, Jalen Phillips, who is the best edge rusher in the AFC East right now, and that's with Von Miller, Bradley Chubb across from him to pair with Jalen Phillips, who for some reason no one wants to talk about. Bradley Chubb's a freaking stud, man. And then Christian Wilkins on the interior with Zach Sealer. I don't know who. Christian don't know who Zach Sealer is. He's told me on Madden. Who's this bum 92? He's not a bum. He's a stud. He's a stud. The whole defensive line, stud. David Long is a stud in his own right. His problem has been availability. Jerome Baker is a very splashy player. He makes plays. He's all over the field. He's rangy. He's not the most consistent. He's not the best in coverage, but you gotta have to live with some of those things. I hadn't even mentioned Jalen Ramsey's name as far as being on the field to pair with this D line. Xavier Howard coming back. People have written him off. This dude has the most interceptions in the league since 2016, and now he's not CB1, and he's not hurt. He's healthy. Cam Smith coming in here as CB3, maybe, if he even makes a Cater Kohu. I don't know if you guys know who that is. He was our best corner last year, UDFA, and held his own. It's only going to be better. Nick Needham. We're loaded. I think we're ready. And I'm calling my shot. I am a Dolphins fan. I might be biased, but I feel like people are biased against Miami because of Tua. So it goes both ways. Miami finishing first, guys.
Go ahead, Christian. Light them up.
Oh, goodness, man. Well, at number one, man, I'm glad I saved it definitely after hearing what I just heard. I have the New York Jets. I just think, Brian, for some reason, and a lot of people just don't understand Aaron Rodgers and who he is and who he has been. Last year, people keep saying last year he wasn't. Also, last year he didn't have his offensive coordinator. His first year without Nathaniel Hackett since winning the back-to-back MVPs. Well, guess what? Nathaniel Hackett is also in New York with him. Well, he was with Russell Wilson. He's the head coach. I don't want Russell Wilson and Aaron are not even close to each other. Nathaniel Hackett is back. Aaron is back. The gold zone's coming back. What we've seen in Green Bay, I expect the Jets to do because they have the weapons to do it, and I think at a higher rate. I expect this offense to be great. They added a Dalvin Cook. I think that was, to me, honestly, a safety blanket for Breece Hall is why they went and got Dalvin Cook. And then Brian was trying to say Breece Hall, Breece Hall, if he didn't get hurt, he was in the running for Offensive Rookie of the Year with Garrett Wilson, who won it. So the running game isn't a big question mark to me on this team. I understand. I don't know what it is with the hate for the Jets, but I just think I expect, what they did in free agency. They went and got Alan Lazard. You can say, yes, that's Aaron's guy. Ooh, scary. I understand, Brian. They have a Randall Cobb. And I don't think Randall Cobb is supposed to be a scary guy like that. I don't think Brian's understanding why Randall Cobb is there. He was a part of this offense when, back-to-back MVPs. He already knows the system. I think he's there more for coaching and showing these guys, hey, Aaron doesn't like that. Do this. Hey, if Aaron does this, this is what he wants. So I just think, Tyler Conklin, another tight end for this team that I don't know why he doesn't get a lot of love. This guy's really good. He's great. I just think last year the quarterback play was so poor here, and it just doesn't show what they have. I just think Garrett Wilson, he was an offensive rookie of the year with Zach Wilson and whoever else was throwing him the ball. This year he has Aaron Rodgers. I expect Garrett Wilson to finish with top 3 in receiving. That's where I expect him to finish. And for me to have this team where I have them, he has to finish. But I just expect Aaron to have a great year. Brian is hating on this defense for some reason. I don't know why. He gave Quentin Johnson some love, but I've been watching Hard Knocks a little bit. You can say that may be why I've even fell in love more with Quentin Johnson. But their head coach, Robert, loves this guy. Every time he sees him, he calls him big money. He's, hey, we gave you that bag for a reason. Go show me real quick why we gave you that bag. And he's lost weight. He looks great. I expect him to bring havoc to this division. And with Miami having that sorry offensive line other than Armstead, I expect Quentin Johnson. You're going to hear a lot about Quentin Johnson getting back there, or Quentin Williams, not Johnson, getting back there a lot this year and bringing your guy down to the ground. And also, Will McDonald, I'm big on this guy. They're going to move him to the edge. I've seen him in the preseason. This guy is all gas, no brakes for real. This guy doesn't get tired. He's been in the game all game, cutting backflips, getting up out of nowhere. I expect Will McDonald to bring havoc, too, on the edge. As soon as they let him get some more play time, I think it's going to take a little bit of time. And then Brian's talking about their corner duo over there in Miami. The Jets just, forget a duo. They have a trio. I think a lot of people forget about how good this trio is. You have Sauce Gardner, DJ Reed, and Michael Carter in the slot. Michael Carter last year was 18th in Pro Football Focus in rank.
Below
That's their 3 guys. Okay, but he's their cornerback 3. What was
So
that
is
guy for
Peter
y'all
Kou.
last year? No.
3?
Xavier Howard's out. He had to play in the number 1, 2 spot every once in a while.
Yeah, we
I
have
just
Jalen
expect this
Ramsey now.
team. Now, when he comes back in November, supposedly. But
Make that
anyway, man,
playoff push,
I'm
baby.
just saying, I expect Aaron Rodgers to be on his MVP level, bringing back the college 8. Chase ain't gonna like hearing it, but that's the best number 8 in the league right now at the quarterback position. So I just expect Aaron to be back at his MVP form. Garrett Wilson's gonna be lighting it up this year. Their defense was, what was it? It was, let me look, number 4th last year, and they were on the field all game. And they were 4th. Imagine actually getting a break for once. They're not going to know how to act on the defense side of the ball, being able to take some time, catch your breath. I expect this defense to honestly be top 3 this year. I think they will be top 3 this year. And like I said, I expect Aaron to arguably maybe be in the MVP push this year, get talked about. I have them easily winning the division and
Easily.
maybe possibly winning the Super Bowl.
Easily.
Easily winning the division.
Oh, wow. Man, what a take, man. What a fun pod this is. We could have did a whole episode on the AFC East, bro. We could
Probably
have.
could have.
Like, this is such a fun division, man. And I prefaced it after we got past the Patriots. These top 3 teams, tune in every Sunday and watch all of them. They all are exciting football teams, especially fans love for offense. You're going to get it from all these teams. They have weapons, they have great QB play, and man, it's going to be fun to watch. That said, we all differ on who finishes first. I went back to Buffalo, and I'm not gonna. We've went really long in this pod, so I'm not gonna go deep dive on Buffalo Bills. We know what they are, but I think a lot of people got a bad taste left in their mouth because they got beat up by a really good Cincinnati football team. That happens in the playoffs, man.
Yep.
You cannot be perfect. It's the most crucial time of the year, and you want to play your best football in that time. Sometimes it doesn't work that way, and that's just the way it is. And that left a bad taste in a lot of fans' mouths. And I think the addition of Leonard Floyd, the health of Von Miller, you get Josh Allen. He's heard so much talk about these turnovers. He cuts back on that a little bit, which I think he can and will. He's such a competitor. He knows his weaknesses in his game, and he wants to cut those out. I think he'll do so. And for that reason, I think they'll beat the Jets head to head. They probably end up splitting, but I think they'll finish like a win ahead of them. They could finish like 2 wins ahead of the Dolphins. That's how close this division is. But Josh Allen's just still that guy, and I think the Bills roster is still very good, man. They cut out the turnovers and stay healthy. One of the best teams in the AFC. But yeah, guys, this was a fun one. We went super long, like super long,
I don't even
and
know how long the pod is.
yeah, rightfully so. This division is a huge talking point, probably the most talked about division in football this year. So I'm so glad to hear all of our takes and how we are planting our flags in each team. We know each one of them's good and can win playoff football games, but this is going to be some of the most entertaining football to watch in the regular season between these 3 teams. So I just want to thank y'all for staying here with me. This was a long one, but it was a fun one.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. I think AFC East is the best division in football. I think AFC West is right there with it, but the Raiders and Broncos are kind of lacking behind. I think New England's better than both of those teams, honestly. Maybe not Denver, but you could really go either way with those two. But yeah, you guys have anything else? I know we ran long.
Yeah, I'll say it again. I've said it the last few times. Technology, we fought with it, and we're trying to get some momentum going. I just want to keep thanking and praising everyone who listens. Keep liking, commenting, sharing. Tell a friend. Let's build this thing before football season kicks off, because we're going long in these pods. We're putting in the time and research, and we're having a lot of fun doing it. But it's so much more fun to do it with a big community, and that's what we're looking to build. So keep doing what you guys are doing, and we thank you and look forward to talking to you again.
Yes, sir. I think that wraps up the pod. See you guys next time.
Yep. Peace.
Stopping.